Hello, welcome. So today we're going to be taking a look at what the Godot game engine is, how you can get started with it, and why you might want to choose it. And once you do choose to work with Godot, how you can get assets for your projects and get yourself up and running. So first of all, let's talk about what Godot is. Godot is an open source, free-to-use game engine that supports both 2D and 3D games. You can find it at godotengine.org, which I'll include a link to in the description down below. There's strangely a little bit of controversy in the community about whether it should be pronounced Godot or Godot. Personally, since their tagline, as you can see here, is the game engine you waited for, that's a reference to the stage play Waiting for Godot, where it's pronounced Godot, which means that I think it should be pronounced Godot. Some people call it Godot, I think specifically because the mascot is a robot. So I don't know, whatever. So one specific reason that you might want to try to make your first game project or make a game project in Godot is the fact that it is free and open source, meaning that no matter what game you make or how much money you end up making off of your project, you won't have to pay any licensing fees back to Godot. It's very much a community-supported project. As you can see, they have a Patreon, and then on top of that, they've received quite a few grants to keep them going. When you go to godotengine.org to download, you want to go to the download section. In here, you can choose between either the standard version or the mono version, which supports C#. I'm going to be using the standard version for my tutorials because I prefer working in GD script with Godot, but you can work in other programming languages. In fact, there are 4 programming languages that Godot supports. It works with its own inbuilt language that's very similar to Python 3 called GD script. It works with C#, C++, and then there's also a visual scripting language that Godot has. So from here, to download it, you can go directly to the download link for the standard version or the mono version, mono meaning C#. Or if you want to download an older version or some other possible extras, if you go to the download repository, here you can find all of the previous versions of Godot, in addition to some demos, an APK fixer, Collada exporter, etc. So we're going to be using Godot 3.2.1 until a newer version comes out, and then we'll change to that. You can also download Godot through itch.io or through Steam. That's right, you can get it from your Steam installer, the same place you get video games. Just search for Godot, and you should be able to find it. Now, once you have Godot downloaded, you're going to want to know how to use this thing. So there's a few different resources you can use to get yourself started. The first one I'd suggest is the Godot asset library, and I'll include a link to that in the description down below as well. This is a library of different projects that do specific things. For example, there is a 2D kinematic platformer. There is a 3D kinematic platformer. There's a very simple Dodge of the Creeps demo that has some documentation to go along with it. There's a role-playing game demo, etc. There's all kinds of things here that you might want to kind of try through. And you want to pay attention to which version it's for. If it's for an earlier version than 3.2, it might still work, but just be aware of that. Also, you might find, if you go all the way back here, you might find some demos that are for the 2.x series, and in that case, they're not going to work in 3.0. So just keep that in mind as you go. The other places that you can go to try to get some assets or ideas for what to work on for your project, I'm going to include links to in the description, and let's talk about those as well. I think it's very important to talk about copyright if you're talking about using assets in a video game. People have a tendency to think that if they don't charge money for it, that they're not violating a copyright, and that couldn't be further from the truth. As soon as anything is in a fixed form, it has a copyright associated with it. Even if you're not charging money for it, if your use of that copyright could cause people to not want to pay money for the original copyrighted asset, then you're essentially stealing revenue from them potentially. You want to be a very good steward of copyright and only use things that you have absolute legal access to. So the first place I'm going to talk about is a website that anybody who's been involved in game dev for any amount of time should already be familiar with, and that's Kenny. Kenny is a graphic designer / game dev asset wonderful person who lives in the Netherlands, who has been creating no strings free game assets for something like 10 years now. If you go to Kenny's webpage, which I'll include a link to, if you go to the assets page, you'll see that they're broken down into 2D, 3D, audio, and UI. And there are some extended packs that you can purchase here that have kind of like it's like a volume of assets, but then there's also some extra stuffs on each of them. So that's something to think about. A lot of people, when they're first prototyping a project or getting something up and running, will use some Kenny assets, and it's something that you can see, but they're high quality. They're very well put together. Another place that you can go is opengameart.org. Be aware with OpenGameArt and the next one I'm going to show you, the copyright relevance isn't always secured. For example, you could, not as much on gameart.org as on the next one, but you could find some people using copyright images and just redistributing them. And just because you got them from somebody who violated the copyright doesn't mean that you might not also have violated that copyright. So whenever you're looking for something on opengameart.org, you want to pay attention to a little thing that pops up in the sidebar. And let's look at this. So here we have Journey to Ares Peak. This is a piece of music. And this is licensed with Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. And if you don't know what that means, you can click on it and it'll bring up a description. So this particular asset, you're free to share, adapt, or remix, but you need to give attribution and appropriate credit. There are no additional restrictions. And this can change quite a bit. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to the restrictions of any license that you might grab from OpenGameArt. Now, the last place I want to talk about here is itch.io. I have my own itch.io page that I'll include in the link in the down there part. But itch.io is typically considered to be a game website where you can, sell or buy or play some different online games. You can also, however, go to Game Assets because they have a Game Assets page and a Tools page. And from here, you can find a lot of different asset packs. Some will be free. Some will be paid for. You'll see these Kenny packs appear again. Every once in a while, though, you'll see somebody post something that they blatantly took from somebody else's copyright and just reposted it here. Again, just because somebody else did it first isn't a reason to break anybody's copyright. So you want to make sure you're being a good steward. You would want other people to respect your copyrights. You want to make sure you're doing the same thing to other people as well. All right, so that's kind of a quick and dirty rundown of what the Godot engine is, how you can get it, and how you can get some assets to work on new projects, and also some assets to get started on your game dev. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a question down below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give me a like. Otherwise, have a great day. All right, thanks very much for watching. I hope you learned something. Feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons down there if you did learn something. You can share this to your social media platform if you think somebody you know might want to learn it. You can click the bell icon. Just go nuts on those buttons down there. There's so many buttons. Why not try pushing them all? Except for maybe dislike. Maybe leave that one alone. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. If you open up the description, you can see that I have provided links to my Patreon, where if you want to chuck in $1 to make sure these videos keep coming, you sure can. My Discord channel, where not just me, but other people are chatting every day, kind of helping people out who are trying to learn this whole trade. You can find my itch.io page, where I have some assets and some general frameworks. And yeah, there's also some kind of general use links down there, so feel free to check out that description. Otherwise, I hope everybody out there has themselves a wonderful day.